Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, you guys. My name is Delorny Namorin. I am a member of the South Bronx Unite Local Action Committee. Today, this was like literally Michael and Matthew thought about this for a very long time. We were on many calls to make this candidate forum in the South Boogie Down Bronx happen. So District 8 is evenly distributed between East Harlem and the South Bronx, even though sometimes the South Bronx doesn't always feel like we get equal distribution. But there's 184,000 of us in the District 8. 34% of us, they claim, is at or below poverty level. 56% of us are rent burden. They think the average income, they're saying, is about $35,000 a year in the Bronx. Mott Haven alone has seen an 85% increase in rent because of our beautiful luxury new buildings. And so there are a lot of issues that we are excited to hear the candidates discuss. There's about 23,000 NYCHA units in District 8, and they're claiming we need like $10 billion in capital improvements. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done in District 8. And the unique thing about this candidate forum is that we got questions from community members or community organizers who advocate on behalf of us in the community. And so if you didn't hear your specific question, don't worry. We thought really hard to integrate the questions because there's a lot of overlap that we are all experiencing in the district. So I hope you guys enjoy all the work we did to make sure that you had a candidate forum that answered the questions that you guys were looking to hear from.
Good afternoon. Voy a hacer este anuncio tanto en español como en inglés. I'm going to be making this announcement both in English and Spanish. Vamos a crear un espacio de justicia de lenguaje. We're creating a language justice space. Entendemos que en estos momentos han cortado mucho del dinero para diversidad, equidad e inclusividad. We understand that a lot of the money that has been cut right now impacts diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Queremos asegurar que todo el mundo pueda escuchar y hablar en el idioma de su preferencia. We want to make sure that people can listen and speak in the language of their choice. Para hacer eso tenemos equipo de interpretación. To do that today, we have interpretation equipment. Si necesitan equipos, if you need equipment right now, pueden pasar por la parte del frente. You can come to the front y le podemos proveer equipos so you can hear in the language that you want. Y le podemos dar equipo so you can listen in the language that you prefer. Mi nombre es Félix. My name is Félix. And estoy con María, mi colega. I'm here with María. We are language justice interpreters. Somos intérpretes de justicia del lenguaje. And it's important to continue to create spaces for us. Y es importante continuar creando estos espacios para todos. Así que tengan muy buena reunión. Have a good meeting. And remember that it's important for us to speak and listen in the language that we prefer and can actually make our choices. Y acuérdense que es importante hablar y poder escuchar en el lenguaje de su opción y mantener estas opciones abiertas. Thank you. Gracias. Have a great meeting.
He's shooting it to me. All right. He just did one of the worst things you can do. He handed a microphone to a talk show host. I mean, you know, there could be trouble with a capital T. Anyway, hi everybody. My name is Gary Axelbank. People might know me from television, from BronxNet television. Thank you. And I have something important to tell you about BronxNet in a moment. But I've been the host of Bronx Talk for 30 years. Okay, I've said it. For a long time, I've moderated 96 political debates. We're looking to do number 100 somewhere along the way as we get toward the primary. I was inspired particularly to come here today when I was told that this is not organized by some outside organization or a bank didn't say, let me sponsor this. It would be nice if they would, let's be honest. But this is as grassroots as you can get. Yes, you're going to applaud because, and I've been, you know, I live in the Bronx all my life, and I've been covering the Bronx also for those 3 decades. And This is who we are. and I'm going to say that this is a highly charged political statement. They are never going to whitewash the Bronx. So forget about it. It's just never going to happen. We are who we are, and we're never going to change. So they can come up with any rules they want. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going to behave any differently. Okay, we're good with that? And then the last thing I want to say, when people go to rallies and they shout slogans, sometimes the slogans, all right, it's a slogan. But I want to tell you, when I look out here and I think of what we're doing today and I see a local community television doing this, capital THIS, this is what democracy looks like. Right? I mean, this is it. These are the people talking to their potential elected officials, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now I'm going to go to all the formal stuff. I'm honored to be moderating today's New York City Council District 8 Candidates Forum at Aspira School in Mott Haven. We love all of our schools. We appreciate you joining us. Here are the partners. Oh, before I mention the partners, Maria Sigourney is one of the translators. She's here somewhere. There she is. Thank you very much for what you're doing. She's telling me to slow down so we get everything done. And Felix Gardone is the gentleman you heard from a few moments ago. Please, applause. As I said to him, there's no point doing this if 65% of the people in the room can't understand what we're saying. So that's why they're here, and we appreciate them. But I want you to hear this list of organizations. A lot of times I do these, and there's 2 organizations and a bank or a car dealership or something. But here are the people of the Bronx. South Bronx Unite, Mott Haven, you could applaud each one. Mott Haven, Port Morris Community Land Stewards, Bronx Hype, East Harlem. And we're letting the folks from East Harlem come here. Thank you very much. East Harlem El Barrio Community Land Trust. And when we hear about land trust, they understand what we understand. Guns Down, Life Up, we all vote for that, that's for sure. New York Communities for Change, the People's Church, Save Section 9, and 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 NYCHA resident associations, Millbrook, Mott Haven, and the Patterson Houses. So we just appreciate all of you. By random drawing, we sat the candidates. Let's just meet who they are. Clarissa Alieto, say hello, there she is. Next to her is Mr. Raymond Santana, thank you, sir. Next to him is Will Lopez, nice to see you, Will. Nicholas Reyes is over there. Nice to see you, Nicholas. And at the far end is Elsie Encarnacion. Nice to see you, ma'am. We are going to do all different things here. We're going to start with a lightning round, and each candidate will have 30 seconds to answer the question. But you know, we're just going to go straight down. Now, I guess you might have to share mics along the way, but just be polite, and we'll get everything done. And that's how we're going to start. And then when we start with the formal questions, we'll give further instructions. So this first question then goes to you, Clarissa. What are the top 2 things that you have done to improve things in the district?
Thank you for that question.
30 seconds.
As the chairperson of Community Board 1, I've expanded our committees to better reflect the needs and the voices of our community, built systems of transparency and leadership development on the board, and I've made history by creating the first LGBTQ committee of all community boards in New York City. I've also spent over 2 decades in education, most recently at Dream Charter School, expanding schools into the Bronx to make sure that our kids here in the South Bronx have access to quality education.
Okay, we'll move right down the road, Mr. Santana.
Good afternoon. As an advocate against criminal justice, I've been fighting against criminal justice all my life since the age of 14 when I was taken from this neighborhood. And so at the end of the day, two things that I feel that I have done to impact my community is through my awareness and it's through my platform, right? I put a spotlight on 125th Street, and we was able to get 24-hour police patrols. I put a spotlight on 125th Street, and recently we got a bid for 125th Street. And it's thankfully to current council member who's in the audience, Diana Ayala. We appreciate you, and we see 125th Street is on its way to be rehabbed. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lopez, 30 seconds.
During the pandemic, I was glad to partner with my neighbors on 117th Street to sue a negligent landlord who cut the gas on us as the pandemic started. So it took about a year, but we were able to get over $100,000 per tenant forgiven and actually get that landlord out. And most recently here in Mott Haven, I was happy to organize the Taste of Mott Haven, which raised $200,000 direct to small businesses, which netted about almost $2 million for those local businesses.
Thank you very much. I should mention, by the way, that we have a timekeeper. He's in the front. He's holding up the time so the candidates can see it. Did I remember your name, Alex? Devin. See, I was right. Kevin. Right. That's right. Okay. Next is you, Mr. Reyes.
Hello? Yes, hey.
There we go.
All right.
Go
As
ahead.
the current state committee member for the district, 68th district, which does not embody the South Bronx, what I've done for the district is sign on to resolutions that serve as progressive resolutions that serve as recommendations for our state elected officials. That's one. And as a state committee member with no budget, I've put on events like back to school drives, like turkey drives in my community where I live at. And yeah, that's what I've done for the district thus far. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final on this question goes to Ms. Encarnacion.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So the two things, and there's many, but the most recent was expanding and advocating to expand participatory budgeting to include $2 million instead of $1 million, and so that the South Bronx and East Harlem did not have to split that money, and that it went specifically towards our public education in our schools. And I was also proudly chair of our Youth Violence Task Force, which created a platform that really talked about specific action items that we can do in this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, we'll start with you, Mr. Santana. The second question, this should be very easy for everybody. How long have you lived in the district?
I lived in the district all my life. I'm born in East Harlem. I spent some time in the Bronx, and then I came back to East Harlem. And so I'm raised in East Harlem, and then from there, I get incarcerated at the age of 14. So I've been in East Harlem all my life.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lopez.
I'm the only person on the stage who was not born in East Harlem or the South Bronx. I've lived here proudly for the last 7 years, but I've been working diligently in the community for the last decade.
Thank you.
I spent my whole life in the East Harlem community, born and raised.
Thank you.
Same, born, raised, live, work, served.
And all the way up here to number one.
I was born in El Barrio and raised right here in Mott Haven. I've never left my community, and proud to say I'm the only Bronx candidate in this race.
Thank you. And then the final question in the lightning round is also relatively easy. I guess we'll start with you, Mr. Lopez. How are you financing your campaign, and who are major contributors?
That's a great question.
I'm proud to say that 40% of my donations have come from in-district. I've taken no real estate money. I have taken no money from a special interest of lobbyists. I'm probably the only person in the room that can say that.
Okay, let's just go down, keep it going. All right, quiet down, everybody, please. Go ahead. Oh, Mr. Reyes.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I raised about $10,000, almost $10,000 to date, and that's all small donations. Most of my donations came from the community. I got no private interest in this race. Nobody's funding me. I'm doing it myself, and I'm proud of it, guys. I'm proud of it.
Thank you.
Same, I'm proud to be a part of the matching funds program, small in-district donations that are funding my campaign, and just recently was endorsed by some powerful labor organizations, meaning that they will be the biggest contributor to my campaign, making sure that it's people-powered.
Thank you.
My campaign has been funded through matching funds, also small donors here in the district who live in East Harlem and the South Bronx, as well as my largest contributors being working class families and neighbors who live here in the district.
The same. Most of my donations come from people who support the movement, who understand what I stand for, and who believe in the direction that I'm moving in. I don't have a super PAC behind me. I don't have $1.6 million behind me. We doing it grassroots through the people. All right, we all in court right now because of this guy right here next to us. They not going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you what it is. Because at the end of the day, I came here to tell the people. We all in court because of this guy right here, who's backed by a super PAC of $1.6 million. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to flood us out and make sure that we don't have a race. But at the end of the day, these candidates up here, they stand solid. And at the end of the day, they're here to fight for the people. Not this guy. You're wasting your time.
During a question.
Hey, Ray, all your money's coming from
time.
Atlanta, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Let-
You can take it there, brother. I don't care. I'm here right now in the flesh. They know who I am. They know my story. They know what I stand on. I ain't a sellout like you. He's gonna sell out to South Bronx and East Harlem. If y'all bring him in office, y'all know what it is.
Gentlemen, thank you. I do want to.
You got me up.
I do want to, ladies and gentlemen, let's settle down. I do want to just mention one more thing before we get. Shh. Please settle down. I do want to mention one more thing, which is a different subject. Maybe it's good to change everybody's emotions right at this moment. As you know, so many things that are really good are under threat all across the country. One of those things that's under threat is public access television, which is your voice, your views, your vision about the Bronx. And BronxNet Television is very concerned about those powers that be. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to read you this. Please send a message of support for public services, in-depth local coverage and analysis, arts and culture, voter literacy, which is what this is about, media education, and all the other things that BronxNet provides. Por favor, it is easy to do. Go to bronxnet.org/community action. If I had a blackboard, I'd write it up there. And let's make sure that you get the kind of coverage forever for these kinds of events. All right, this next section is going to be how we're going to continue the rest of the afternoon. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and Kevin, our timekeeper, will keep them informed of what they have left. And let's see, let's just go right down the aisles. Mr. Reyes, you get the first in-depth question. They have all come from community organizations. This is from New York Communities for Change. How do you plan to address the housing affordability crisis in District 8, especially for the pillars of our communities, the long-term residents who are facing rising unaffordable rents and potential displacement?
Well, that's a great question. You know, very multi-layered. But the first thing we got to talk about is how it's called MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing percentages, and that's how developers are building in our community. So what I mean by that is when they come here, they buy property outright, and then they make development at a certain percentage. And right now, during this housing affordability crisis, it doesn't match the people that live here, the annual median income, which is unfortunate. And one thing that gets me upset and makes me sad is that our current elected officials tout that they're making affordable housing when, if you would even look at the South Bronx, half of South Bronx, their median income is like $107,000. You know what I mean? Like what they call Mott Haven. But Mott Haven, like one of my fellow candidates was saying the other day to me, Clarissa, she said, Mott Haven is bigger than just that side that we see, you know what I mean? So we have to look out, and we have to make sure that we're making real affordable housing. So that's one. Two, when it comes to NYCHA, we need to find ways to fund it. NYCHA has been operating at a budget shortfall for a long time now, and what we have to do is we have to create tax revenues, just like at the state level they did for the MTA with the congestion pricing. We need to find tax revenue that's constantly going into NYCHA so we can fix the issues that we're having there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Encarnacion.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Nick touched on some really important parts, especially AMI. We want to look at ways to make it more localized. The actual area median income for the district is closer to $62,000. And the only reason it is that is because we have wealthier parts of the district that encompass the Upper East Side. But when you're looking at the South Bronx, that becomes closer to $30,000 for working families, which means that our rents shouldn't be reflecting more than $800, if that, right? And what we're seeing is $2,700 for affordable housing. I can't afford it. So, people that live on the waterfront and those new buildings do, but it is very difficult for us to fight if we continue to have AMI, and that is not localized. So fighting for that is definitely on the board. In the meantime, we have to stop the rent stabilization going up, right? And so a freeze on that would really help us while we really figure out how to bring us out of poverty with workforce development. And we also have to encourage our neighbors in the city council to also build. The burden should not be put on us to take away our public land just for building when the rest of the city has not been doing the same. We deserve parks and we deserve open spaces to recreate. We are carrying the burden of building in the city, and the rest of the city council has to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Arrieta.
Yeah, we've been talking about affordable housing for too long, for too many elections, too many leaderships. And I think, right now, more than ever, we need to, one, we can't talk about affordable housing without preserving the affordable housing that already exists, being that NYCHA is one of the biggest, right, and is the backbone of this district, combining East Harlem and the South Bronx with the largest development amount of NYCHA housing here. So we have to preserve NYCHA. And we also have to preserve rent-stabilized apartments. So we got to talk about protecting that, and I'm going to fight to protect tenant rights. So we have to do that. I also agree with my colleague. I agree with Elsie when she talks about localizing AMI, because we can't continue to say that the calculations in East Harlem should be included with the rest of the city. We know that we live in a very, very low income. The median income here, from what I see and what I know, is $40,000. So 60 is even on the higher end. So we really have to talk about and work with our neighbors in government, federal and state, to think about how we talk about localized AMI in this district.
Thank you. Mr. Santana.
Both points are great. I agree with both points. For me, we, during the petition phase, we visit those developments. We walked through them. We saw the eviction notices on the door. We saw the rat droppings, the rat traps in. Let me get to that, brother. Let me set that up.
Please, folks, let the candidates finish.
We saw what it looks like, and we saw how the people need more a reinstatement, more affordable ability, more transparency with NYCHA. We've seen it firsthand, so we understand that there's a fight there. But at the end of the day, we need the people to get behind us and help push us so that we can make things happen.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
So I released a housing plan yesterday, the first of its kind in this district. It will preserve and create 15,000 homes in this district and maintaining them at an affordable level to the people that are currently living here so that we can stave off gentrification. It would take the impact of using public lands that are currently locked right now in order to help build. It would also put a focus on ensuring that we could raise the money that we need for the repairs that are needed in NYCHA. So the NYCHA plan would be very simple. We would be using, making sure that our state partners put in a pied-à-terre tax to tax the second luxury homes that billionaires and millionaires have downtown, as well as working towards making sure that we're putting in a tax on all stock transactions, which itself can net over $20 billion to New York City's bottom line, which would be helped in order to help take care of the $10 billion capital needs that NYCHA developments have. You can take a look at the plan. It's out there. It's on lopezfornyc.com/issues. You can read it. It's 21 pages long. I even have a one-pager on it as well for you.
Can I hold on.
Can I ask a question?
No.
I can't rebuttal?
You can use these terms as but that's
Okay, all right, cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, it's very important that every candidate gets to finish. I know we're talking about our homes, we're talking about our neighborhoods, it's very personal for each of us, but the most important thing is that the candidates who are here get a chance to speak. The questions have been submitted by community members, et cetera, et cetera.
that was my question, and nobody is.
Well, we're not going to do that now, ma'am, I'm sorry, because...
They're speaking at the end of the day. What night should it?
Ma'am, I'm sorry, we cannot take the time to do that. No, you can't, I'm sorry.
Yes, on that question.
Right.
That was my question. Right.
Go ahead.
So at the end of the day, I just oppose all these changes with the conversion of Section 9 state. What they're not telling the residents is that for instance, Mr. E8, you have no more rights.
Yep, that's facts.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, really, we could have a forum with everybody in this room, but we will never get through the program if we do that. And I know everybody has a point of view about every topic. So please, let's let the candidates finish, and then afterwards there'll be an opportunity to submit further questions that will be presented to the candidates. The next question, I guess we were up to Ms. Encarnacion, right? You get the next one. Based on your understanding of District 8's median income, what do you believe is the appropriate monthly rental payment for a local family of four seeking a two-bedroom apartment?
I answered that question earlier and for the earlier part, so I want to take a moment to acknowledge our resident association president and her question around Section 9, and also let you know that it is true. When NYCHA has become in a situation where it's so defunded that it is taking the opportunity to switch people, sometimes without their consent, into a Section 8 program. And what we can do is help alleviate some of the capital needs that we need in NYCHA so that they do not feel forced to take that, right? And so we do that by implementing and putting funding into NYCHA and earmarking it specifically for repairs, which was done just recently in the city of Wall, but we can do more, right? And making sure that we codify that into the funding system. We have to protect our Section 9. We have 21 developments in this district, and we will not let them be sold out, right? This is a resident first and a resident answer that needs, and this is a resident president here. And so, you know, we should be listening to her questions and allowing her to speak.
Okay, thank you. Same question for you, Ms. Alietta.
Thank you. So when thinking about a family of four, you know, this is personal because I think about my sister and her children. Currently, my sister has a voucher. This is something that our community is dealing with big time. She has a voucher, but she can't find an apartment. And she can't find an apartment because the rent is too high in terms of how she qualifies. And so based on the median income for a family of four, this community cannot afford $2,000 rent for a two-bedroom. So we have to rethink that. We have to rethink that for a family of four for a two-bedroom. And we have to make sure that we're building units to reflect that and for people who can afford that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Santana, go ahead. 90
Stop
seconds.
cutting the mic off. No, 100%. I stand with Clarissa on that. It would be $2,000. And for me, my dad is 73 years old. He's been in East Harlem all his life. He's retired. He can't afford it. So at the end of the day, I have an added invested interest in seeking affordability, especially for our seniors. Because at the end of the day, you put in the work in our communities, you've been there, you are the pillar. And it's only right that we accommodate and we salute you for the work that you put in and being in our communities. So that's, you know, so that's it right there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lopez.
Ray, you got to get your math right. $2,000 for someone making $35,000 is like almost 80% of what they take home. It should be $875. That's 30% of what someone making $35,000 can afford a
I
month.
don't got a super PAC, so I don't know how to say it.
I just want to acknowledge the TA president that was speaking. I grew up in NYCHA houses as well, and it makes me very upset that that we have to sacrifice affordability to get repairs. The state turned their back on us a long time ago, and we have to figure out how to raise revenue, like Elsie was saying earlier, for NYCHA, earmarked for NYCHA, with about $846. To answer the question is how much people should be paying, but right now it seems like an impossible task. We need to really, really figure this out because the affordable is a 1.6 vacancy rate right now, meaning that there's really nothing out there. I think we're almost like in a crisis right now, and I feel like the city council needs to do better at creating laws or holding developers accountable for when they develop in our neighborhoods, because it's been a free reign. You know, and they get taxed. There's taxes. There's 421X, I believe, tax incentives that we could leverage. You know, to let them, you know, build. But we have to make sure when they're building proportional, affordable housing to the people that live there. And that's all I got to say about that matter.
Thank you very much. The next question is from a community member, one of the people who might be here today. And the first answer to that will come from Ms. Alieto. The community is upset that we have a high concentration of land used for shelters, drug treatment facilities, and the borough-based jail. When you take office, how will you work to ensure that the city redistributes these facilities equitably?
So, you know, I was really upset when our community got identified for that 2,200 bed shelter. And I was in opposition of it. Not in opposition of the immigrant community, but in opposition because our community has bared the brunt of the shelter crisis and the homeless crisis here in the South Bronx. And so for me, it's making sure that other communities in New York City are taking their fair share of shelters, because we can't continue to be, because we're a low-income community, the community that takes all the shelters. And so I will make it my mission to fight for other communities to get their fair share.
Thank you. Mr. Santana?
Rightfully so. We walk through 125th Street, which is in my district, which is my neighborhood. I live around the corner from there. I see it every day, right? The homelessness, the mental health that we have in our communities that's rampant. And it's not only 125th Street, it runs all through the east side of Harlem, right? And then we visit the South Bronx. We go to 149th Street, and it's the same problem. We need solutions. That's it. I know that the people, we walk through these districts, we walk through these areas, and we talk to the people, and they are tired. They want action. So at the end of the day, again, it's a call. We need you to get involved. Your voice matters. If we don't want shelters in our community, then we got to get involved and express and voice our opinions that it shouldn't be here. And the same thing goes for jails. Because now we're starting to let everything gets dumped in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, we need solutions, but Ray, you're not offering any. If we're talking about
Here we go.
the shelters, if we're talking about the shelters, basically no more DHS facilities until we have built at least 4,000 affordable housing units in the district, and then any shelter that comes in after that has to come with equal amount of housing. Secondly, in order to combat the oversaturation that we have, by the way, our community combined is carrying about 20% of the city's total capacity for methadone clinics. We need our state elected officials to pass the law that says that no more siting will happen if any community has 5% or more of the city's capacity. That way there's no chance of any more methadone clinics coming in. We also need to change the way those contracts are written. Right now, methadone is a moneymaker for these organizations. And I'm telling you, the only way we can do is we've got to get rid of methadone and start using secondary therapy, Suboxone, which have been proven to work. Lastly, we can't continue to be blindsided. Every time something gets dumped into this community, the elected officials say, well, we didn't know. Well, guess what? We need to be in those conversations. We need to have those relationships. That way, no more dumping happens in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
So yeah, it's not a secret that for some reason the Bronx is always getting targeted to open up new DHS shelters, which is very unfortunate. And the reason why I believe that happens is because we don't organize against it well enough to combat it. Now, when you look at like, let's take the Upper East Side, which is close to the district, they are about to get their first one soon, and that's out of pocket. You know what I mean? When you gotta equally distribute these shelters throughout the city. It's not fair that we have to bear the brunt of the shelter system. Now, am I against shelter systems? No. If you look at the numbers, there's a high uptick in street homelessness, and that goes all throughout the city. So we're in a crisis as well with that. So what we have to do is equally distribute. Now, in the Bronx, like I'll give you an example. Althea Stevens, her district has a whole bunch of homeless shelters now. And what we have to do is we have to tell DHS that's not okay, and here's a freeze. Until you equally distribute it out throughout the city, you cannot open up a DHS shelter or EHP shelter in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Encarnacion.
All right. Agreed with the freeze, a moratorium, making sure that we stop any more shelter sightings until there is a plan that includes community voice, starting from community residents, community board, and local elected officials, because we are aware that this is a state mandate, right? They are the ones putting these shelters into the community, and you know that, Will. And so I don't know why you continue to push an idea into the community that we were blindsided by anything. It is really disrespectful, and it just boggles my mind that you continue to push a narrative that you don't even believe. False narratives is correct. But what we can do is hold the moratorium and make sure that we have a plan that includes community voice, that equitably distributes, and that redistributes, right? Stop where they're at and move them. They need to come out of this community so that we can really make sure that what we're getting in this community is things that we need, things that we want, and things that we have voted for and had a word in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The next question, I think, Mr. Santana, you get the next one, right? This comes from, speaking of public housing in NYCHA, this comes from Millbrook, Mott Haven, and Patterson resident associations. Given that the City Council has oversight for the day-to-day operation of NYCHA, what is your plan to improve living conditions for NYCHA residents and ensure timely repairs without privatization?
Yeah, like we said earlier, we know that NYCHA is a big problem when it comes to people living in those developments. And so, we have to go in there and we have to strengthen those tenants' rights. We have to strengthen the laws. We have to show transparency for the people in NYCHA. They need to understand exactly what's going on. And I think that's where it starts. It starts with the clarity between NYCHA and the people, and then also bringing in other organizations that can help so that our people can afford to stay in NYCHA for long term, because we know that they're getting priced out. But it starts with the accountability, and it starts with the awareness.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
So currently, the district needs $10 billion in capital funding. So we're not going to get that from the federal government, and we don't have any single source to get that. But what we can do is we can pick from multiple different sources in order to raise as much money as possible. My housing plan calls for a $1.7 billion investment, and this is how we get to it. We prioritize capital funding to make sure that it's going to the districts that need it the most. Right now, we have $10 billion need. The next closest one district, it's $3 billion. So obviously, a lot of that capital needs to be going our way. We're going to reduce the cost of construction by using innovative and more efficient construction practices, working with labor unions, working with NYCHA in order to make sure that we're saving money on construction costs. We need philanthropic support, specifically from the Mayor's Fund. They have money for this. We can use some of their money in order to help fund this. Lastly, we need the state to be able to pass a pied-à-terre tax so that we can get the money, put it into a lockbox, and make it used for NYCHA. And lastly, take advantage of the stock transfer tax that will raise $20 billion for the city, a large majority of which should be locked up for NYCHA use.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
I just find it hilarious that Will talks about a tax from the stock market. Can you remind us who's giving you money, brother? When you get a chance. After. So the name of the game is we need to identify revenue sources for NYCHA. NYCHA is obviously severely underfunded. If you look through any NYCHA development in our district, it looks almost identical, which is out of pocket. Now, what we need to do is find streams of revenue. So what I mean by that, the MTA wanted to fund, and I know this at the state level, but we could do this. We could do this as well. We could figure this out. So what I mean by that is we need to figure out how. So the MTA is and definitely for right now, getting funded by congestion pricing, right? So that is automatically they're gonna have funding for their projects, which is unfair because they get they get city funding, they get state funding, they get funded, and so what I mean by that is we need to find a revolving door of revenue for NYCHA so we can address these repairs because we're in a state of disrepair right now. So that's basically what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Encarnacion.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, there has been many opportunities for the city to leverage funds to different projects. We've seen it happen where that funding had been specifically allocated to NYCHA, specifically allocated to capital resources, but it's just not enough. And so Nick is right. We have to look at innovative ways, bringing in the state and the federal government. The federal government needs to pay their bills. They need to keep putting that money back into NYCHA and making sure that it's a viable space for us to live, for us to grow, for us to be permanent, affordable housing. It's the only truly affordable housing that we have in the city that's left. And so leveraging that money makes sense. The mayor is not going to help you. He is not going to help you. That hasn't happened. They're not going to come and help our communities. They haven't done it for the last whatever amount of years. We have to fight as a city council to even get them to agree to let us use our money in community developments. We have projects that we have funded community centers in that they have stopped the funding in. And so I don't believe in looking at the rest of the city agencies to help with this. We have to find the way out ourselves, and the answer is with the power of the people.
Thank you. Final word on this for Ms. Alieto.
So I want to use this time to kind of respond to Elsie's response in the first question about the shelter and community engagement, because the very issue of why we were upset in this community was because your administration decided to choose that location to put the shelter there. And the issue that we were upset was because there was a lack of communication, a lack of engagement with the community. And so we have to make sure that we're just not saying, we're talking about leaders who have been working in city council, who have had the opportunities to put a stop to this long ago. So we need to really think about leadership to come in and say, for real, we can't have that in our communities no more. Other communities have to take their fair share. But I also want to add in about NYCHA. So as someone born and raised who currently still has family living in NYCHA, it is real for me to say that to solve the NYCHA solutions, the people closest to the problem are the people closest to the solution. And I truly believe that there's no way that you can make decisions for people living in NYCHA and not really know firsthand what they're going through. And so I just want to say, we need to do things. People who live in NYCHA need to feel like they are dignified. They are human beings. Enough is enough. I can't believe this is a conversation at another political forum that we're talking about the repairs at NYCHA. Because when I was part of CVH, I was out there advocating for NYCHA residents.
Thank you. You can finish in the next question if you'd like. All right, the next question. The next question, I believe, goes to you, Mr. Lopez. This comes from the Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards. How will you address ongoing health disparities in the South Bronx and East Harlem, including asthma, food insecurity, lack of green space, and limited access to our public waterfront?
So in terms of the asthma rates, we definitely need to plant more trees. We need a tree canopy specifically around the hotspots, 87, the FDR, places where we have a lot of traffic. We also need to make sure that tree canopy is evergreen, so that way we're not just getting the benefits of the tree canopy in the summertime, we can get it year-round. In order to address food insecurity, we need more space for urban farms. We need more space where people can grow healthy food, whether it be rooftops, hydroponic farms, but also creating space in the community so that the food that is being brought into this community, into Hunts Point, doesn't bypass us and actually has a place to land, so it has access and we can get rid of the food deserts that we currently have. And in terms of more park space, as we build, as we look at how we're using city land, we have to keep the green space intact. I support the one community garden for every 99 units of housing built. Under my plan, that will bring 1,500 community garden spaces into this community.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes.
So, I don't know if you guys ever heard of like environmental racism, but the South Bronx and East Harlem are suffering through environmental racism. There's a higher level of particulate matter in the air, which causes a lot of adverse health conditions, and that's caused by diesel trucks. And the reason what's going on is that our passage through the South Bronx into East Harlem, actually, this is another way that we connect on a level, is that we are going through the same things, because you have to go through here to get downtown, and that's trucking. So we need to do, so right now, there's a plan that has been made, it's called the Blue Highway. It's called the Blue Highway. Instead of using roads for delivery, we can use the water for delivery. And I think that's very, very, very smart when it comes to the environment, because it will produce less EO2 like levels in the air. And that's something that I would look into. Now, that's one. For public green spaces, I can't lie. The administration right now has, since I've been growing up, there's a lot of green spaces that have left my community, which is unfortunate. So we need to have people like myself who are in the spaces that want to advocate for green spaces. Now, food insecurity, I kind of agree with Will. We need to be able to do basically growing stuff on roofs, like having gardening, like teaching kids about, agriculture and growing stuff. That's what I believe it will be helpful when it comes to food insecurity, because if we can make our food, supermarkets can't control the prices, you know what I mean? We can make our own veggies, we don't have to go there, and we don't have to look around. Sorry, my bad.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Encarnacion.
Thank you. The great thing about this question is that the answer does lie in the audience at this time. We have organizations that have been working on this issue for a very long time. We have partnered with those organizations. They already have a plan in place that identifies many of the things that are spoken about here today. I really thought that Will was going to say that he's going to keep giving out food to promote his candidacy as one of the things to address the food issue, the food insecurity issue. But regardless, those things are not sustainable. We have to create that within our communities and allow them to be their own shepherds. You say you believe in that, but I haven't really seen it. And the truth of the matter is that when things have come across this community, Clarissa, and I have to say this, you have been in the position to vote on those things, like the jail, and you voted yes. I did not, and so we have to be honest about our intentions for this community, and we have to allow the community to lead the way. Don't say things that are not accurate and that are not true, because it makes it harder for community members to really see what is important. Their voice is important, and we have to be there to support it. We have many ideas. We have been implementing them time and time again. What we don't need is a handout, and we don't need people to look at us like we don't have our own answers.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ayala, go ahead.
So, as the chairperson of Community Board 1, I created the Environmental Justice and Sanitation Committee. That was something that I was dedicated to because of the high rates of asthma, because of our environmental injustices that we've experienced here in our district. The other thing is I've been the only candidate that has stood strong against congestion pricing, because I know what congestion pricing and the effects that it has on our districts. And so we can't support congestion pricing when it impacts communities like the Bronx and East Harlem. So we got to do something better about that. And, look, I've partnered with different community partners and have advocated for an investment in in green infrastructure here in the Bronx. Most recently, the planting of trees, where we partnered with our BP and other organizations like South Bronx Unite to bring that to the waterfront here in Mott Haven. And so when we talk about environmental injustice, I agree with Elsie on that you can't, in addition to the environmental injustice, you can't buy our community. You just can't buy our communities. Combating food injustice, it's not going to get solved with temporary fix as, doing food pantries in NYCHA developments. We just can't have that. We have to do away with that. We have to create real sustainable solutions, and buying our communities with fresh produce is not it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Santana, go ahead.
Yeah. Go Clarissa, that's right. Listen, when it comes to the greenery, in our community, I definitely understand. My dad, he has a community garden on 117th Street between 3rd and Lexington. Shameless plug. Make sure when you stop by, you say hello. And so it's very important, because I watched him have that community garden for over 30 years, and I see how it brought community together. I see how all the old timers came out there, they played the music, they played dominoes, right? It was a social gathering. And then to actually come and see COVID come in and wipe out most of the members in the yard. My father lost around 15, 16 friends.
Yes, that's right.
That's how important greenery is. That's how important these spaces are. That it brings community together. It gives us a sense of oneness. And then it looks good, right? Because for long they give us these labels of we live in the concrete jungle, and that's to desensitize us, to look at that gray space and think that it's okay to be here, and it's not. So I agree with everybody when it comes to green energy.
Thank you very much. I guess we're going to start the next question with Mr. Reyes, right? That's who's up next. This comes from Guns Down, Life Up, and New York Communities for Change. What tangible solutions do you have for public safety and crisis management systems, including the growing mental health and homelessness crisis?
It's a pretty layered question. So, public safety is a big thing that's going on right now. Young kids are getting guns earlier and earlier and earlier, and we see that in neighborhoods all the time. What I would like to do is make our community feel like a community again, meaning that, you know, growing up, I used to play, sports in my neighborhood, and that brought us together. And the reason why I bring up sports is because we can fund activities that make kids want to be in their community. I feel like there's not a lot of that, or not a lot of robust. I'm not trying to, because there's nonprofits here that I'm sure that are, trying to, have this type of programming, but it's not enough because our kids, obviously, if you're looking at social media, if you're looking at what's going on, they're stuck in a different world. Partially because of the pandemic. The pandemic has taken our kids' attention level all the way down. So there was things floating around like locking somebody's phone in a locker, and I would say I don't think that that's the answer, but there's a lot of things that we can do to address building a community so kids don't feel like our young kids are feeling like they need to pick up guns and commit crimes because there's nothing to do in the neighborhood. And growing up, again, like gauchos in the Bronx has been a big benefit, a factor of like bringing kids together and keeping kids safe. We need more of that in our neighborhoods. That's it.
Thank you.
So, we need to stop looking at public safety by criminalizing people that have mental health issues, that are facing poverty. Like, this is how we continue to get into these situations. We have to look at policies like the Housing First policy that addresses these issues, right? That gives people a stable place to live, invest in infrastructure like better lighting, cameras, sanitation services, right? We need to start investing in these things in an even larger amount. There are community-based organizations that have been doing this work and doing this work well for very long in our community, and so we have to increase their funding so that they can provide the proper services to their communities. They're doing the best that they can with the resources that they have, and our job is to make sure that they have more resources to address this. But addressing those root issues like secure housing, stable housing, addressing mental health and poverty as a health disparity and not a criminalized thing, that's what we have to focus on and invest our money where our priorities are.
Thank you. Ms. Alietta.
We really need to dig into this other safety issue. Because every time
We have a question about that coming up. Thank you. We do have a question about that coming up. So, folks, that's why you just hang out. Go ahead.
So I first experienced gun violence when I was 5 years old in Patterson houses, and I continued to experience gun violence in Patterson houses year after years. We would lose very close friends, classmates, and it was something that played heavy on my mind because we didn't have any intervention, and to date we still experience a lot of that. We're lacking a lot when we talk about the violence in our communities. And so for me, I started an initiative back in 2011 in our communities to combat gun violence, and in Patterson in particular, where we created programming for young people, summertime, to make sure that they were engaged and practicing the importance of nonviolence. And it is similar to the violence interruption programs that exist today in our communities. And we have to big up that work. We have to continue to fund those programs to really, because These are programs that are in the community, they're the frontline people, but we have to make sure that they're delivering. We gotta look at the data, we gotta look at the funding, we gotta make sure, we gotta hold these organizations accountable. And so it's not just because these organizations exist in our communities, they're great organizations. We have to really dig deep to say, are you really delivering for our communities? Because we can't have,
About that.
you know, all of this funding going into that, but the crime is not going down. So we got to make it make sense.
Thank you. Mr. Santana.
You know, I was taken from this community at the age of 14. I spent 7 years of my life in prison for a crime that I did not commit. And to come home from there and to see that it was a tough transition for me. And I didn't have nowhere to go, and it led me back to recidivism. And so I understand what it's like in our community for our young people. I understand public safety is a must. For me, I come in with a platform, right? I try to shine the light on public safety because at the end of the day, if I come in with some credibility, and if I can sit there and I can build the relationship between us and the police, and we can start to mend those relationships. Because at the end of the day, our children matter. They are the cream. The system rather have you occupy a jail cell than a college dorm. And so at the end of the day, when I come out in them streets and I come out to talk to people, I'm recruiting, brother. I need brothers to come up and help. I need brothers to assist. At the end of the day, the unification of the black and brown man in our community is imperative. It's dimensional. We need it. It's imperative. It has to be done at the end of the day. And so we know what the problem is with our children. We know what they go through, but it's time to put some action.
What?
I'm tired of talking. I'm ready to cut this mic off and just leave because we need to just get busy.
That's right.
But I understand the process. So I come here to talk to the people at the end of the day. I need you in them streets. When you see me out there, I need you to support me because we're trying to save our babies no matter what the cost.
Start.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez, you get the final word on this.
We have to start by expanding mental health services to not just adults, but to the youth, to teenagers. The only way we're going to be able to do that is we need more mental health professionals that are culturally competent and prepared to work in communities like ours. There's a great bill at the state right now that would increase the number of social workers that can work in the community. In the first 2 years, it would bring about 10,000 culturally competent social workers. Definitely something that we should be supporting. In order to fight homelessness, it has to be housing first. But beyond that, we also have to make sure that folks that are transitioning out of shelters have all the resources they need in order to make sure that they can move in and stay stabilized in their homes. Lastly, we gotta hold city agencies to account. The reality is that we're spending anywhere between $4,000 to $4,500 every single month per adult who's in a shelter. Why can't we turn that money that we're spending to keep people in the shelters into ensuring that they can stay in permanent housing for the next 10 years and then literally scale down the amount of the subsidy based on once they stabilize and working? About last night alone, we're talking 60,000 children woke up in a shelter. The majority of the people in our shelters are children. We need to make sure that their parents have the resources available to have a stabilized home so we don't lose a generation of children to homelessness.
All right, the next question for you, Ms. Encarnacion. This comes from a community member. How do you intend to ensure that the Bronx Borough-based jail is not another Rikers Island, but instead focused on rehabilitation and re-entry back into the community with programs like workforce development and, of course, mental health support?
Yeah, in order to ensure it, we have to change the system that created it in the first place. You know, there is a community design going around for BBJ, but the design doesn't mean anything if we continuing to operate in a way that criminalizes our youth, that doesn't allow people to get real pre-trial services, real wraparound services, jail reform issues. If we're not decreasing the amount of people that are going into the jails, all we are doing is creating 5 mini Rikers, and that is an issue, right? And so we have to continue to invest invest in people, invest in opportunities for them. We cannot criminalize people for not being able to make bail, and make sure that we have community members that are in part of the community that are holding those people responsible to coming back in and making sure that they appear for their court dates. Those things are jobs that our people in our community can do to make sure that recidivism doesn't happen, to make sure that people don't skip out on going to court, and to make sure that we lower the amount of people that are in our jails. You know, that is something that is community driven. It's not an idea that I come up with. People have been talking about this for a long time. It's time to take action and make sure that we fund it when it needs to be funded and legislate when we need to legislate. But the only way we're going to really make a difference is by decreasing the amount of people that are going into our system and making sure they stay out.
Thank you. Ms. Arrieta.
So I served on the NAC, which was a committee that was designed with the city council person to make sure that when this jail came in, that there were certain things that we demanded as a community. And currently, our community board is following up on those benefit agreements to make sure that all of those agreements are being checked, to make sure that there's nothing left behind that the community said should happen in the community is happening. But more importantly, we need to focus when people go to jail and they're in a holding cell, there's no way that they should be released with no resources. They need to be, there has to be some real intentional rehabilitation when somebody goes to jail. We cannot continue to send people to jail and then let them come into society thinking that because they spent time in jail, they're okay. We need to provide mental health services, and not just any mental health services. We need to make sure they're quality health services, not putting any organizations in these jails and in these facilities that are just going to do the basic stuff. We need people who are really going to do the work, and we need a leader like myself who's going to hold city agencies and organizations accountable to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Santana.
You know, when it comes to the prison system, right, the first thing that we should ask ourselves is when the person comes back and they return back out to society, how do you want them to return? Do you want them to be a better criminal, or do you want them to be rehabilitated and ready to make some change? And so at the end of the day, we have to lend our voices to the system, that it has to turn back and go from punishment to rehabilitation. We got to make sure that the services that, you know, these guys up here raise valid points. There have to be services for people when they come out of prison to transition. Because if you don't transition them properly, then they feel stuck. I'm a victim of recidivism. I know what it's like when you come home and you feel like you have no hope and there's nothing there. And the programs might exist, but if you don't know about them, then they don't. And you feel hopeless and you feel like you have nowhere to turn. And that's why the recidivism rate is so high. It's predicted that within 6 months to a year, you're on your way back. And so at the end of the day, the only way we can combat this problem is by, again, bringing our voices to the forefront, making them loud, making them understand that if you bring a jail in this community, I mean, for you to get a jail in this community that is coming, says that something slipped, that people didn't know or they weren't informed. So at the end of the day, you close down Rikers Island, and now every borough gets its own jail, which was about a budget of what, $3-point-some billion? So what happens to Rikers Island after? What is that going to turn into? High rises, and how does that benefit us? Maybe the super PAC, they know what's going to happen.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
80% of the people in Rikers Island have not been convicted of a crime. So first things first is that if you are someone who has access to wealth, you're not going to be at Rikers. Unfortunately, it's criminalizing poverty. So we do need to do something to eliminate that, so that brings down the jail population. The best way to make sure that a borough-based jail doesn't become another Rikers is not to have them in our community. That's a space that could have been housing. We could have built 550 units of housing right where that jail is. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The next thing that we need to do to ensure that it doesn't become another Rikers Island is we need to have workforce development in there to ensure that people are getting skills that would put them in jobs that they can actually earn a good salary. I propose working with not only our labor unions, but also our tech firms, folks that need good trained workforce and having them pay for workforce training for people that are currently serving or are going to be serving in those borough-based jails, so that when they come out, they can go into a pathway for an apprenticeship and actually become a good unionized worker and earn a salary that's going to propel them out of poverty and into the middle class. That's how my father was able to get out of poverty and go into the middle class, was by working with the union and learning a trade and using that trade to raise 8 kids.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes, you get the final word on this question.
Hey guys, so we all talked about recidivism. The recidivism rates are disgusting. So what I mean by that is jail has never been rehabilitative. It's always been punitive, and that's the problem. So they don't want, it's never been like if you look at how they do jails in other countries, they actually are a lot more welcoming, and there's actually better outcomes like in countries like in Europe. So we need to look at those countries to see how they operate their jails to bring that framework over here. That's one. Two, Rikers Island, I don't know, I used to be a criminal defense paralegal, and I've actually spoke to many people down on Rikers Island, and it's hell on earth. So it's good that they're closing that down. Somebody just died the other day. The conditions are disgusting there. That's another one. Number three is, now we talk about these jails that are opening in the Bronx. It's not good. It's not good that it's opening, but it is opening. So how do we go against the culture? The culture is basically so we have to basically control how the prisoners get access to mental health treatment, and when they're coming out, there's wraparound services for them so they're not going back to jail. That's the ultimate goal. If jail, we need to change the goal of our jails. We need to make them about making people better and not making people worse. And then when they come out, they say, oh, I already been to jail, I could go back, all I gotta do is risk it. We gotta, all right, thank you.
Time, thank you. Our next question comes from Save Section 9, and I guess Ms. Alieto, you get it first. This was related to something somebody said before. Public housing is often the background for gun and gang violence. This trend can only be reversed through youth investment. Currently, NYCHA community centers in our district serve children up to about age 11, and none stay open till 10 p.m. If elected, what changes would you implement to better serve teenagers?
So I heard something about Section 9, but then I heard something about...
Well, Save Section 9 is the name of the organization.
Got it.
Got it. So the question was public housing and serving teens.
Look, our communities, I grew up in Patterson houses. I grew up being able to go to Night Center. I was a basketball player, and Night Center was open till 10 o'clock. But Night Center wasn't on Patterson grounds. It was actually the school across the street that kept their doors open for us to continue to engage, whether it was in basketball, games, but also we had positive mentors and people who cared about us. What we see now in the development is that we don't have access to space. Our young people don't have anything to do. If you look at Patterson Community Center, their center is the same center that I attended many moons ago. We need better spaces for our young people, and I am committed to making sure that the Bronx gets a community center for young people, specifically for young people in this community to have a space so that they can engage in activities, because what's happening is that our kids, they don't have a space to go to. While we see that there are spaces for K to middle school, our high schoolers and our young adult population, they are left with no options but to hang outside on the block. And we got to change that, because we have to provide these spaces for them.
Thank you, Mr. Santana.
100%. Boys Club, Girls Club. My daughter she used to go to the Boys Club, so I know how important those programs are. Simpson Street, yeah, 100%. We got Jefferson Park in East Harlem. So that we know how important that those programs are to our youth. We got to keep them occupied. We got to keep them busy, right? Too much idle time on their hands leads them to fall into some traps. And so at the end of the day, it's always about the community banding together, right? We got to expand after-school programs, summer jobs, sports activities, right? We used to have a nice baseball field in East Harlem. We lost that to high-rises. So at the end of the day, art programs, right? We got to get back into the culture of our communities, and we got to teach that culture to our children, right? My daughter doesn't even remember that 116th Street used to be La Maqueta. We losing the culture. And so at the end of it still is, but they don't know. They don't know.
That was a few years ago.
That's right. Diana did too. That's the city council member. She's here. You know, at the end of the day, but that's what it is. It's about that. It's about keeping our children to understand, teaching them to understand culture and where we come from and our music, and we're losing that. And we're losing that to senseless gun violence and gang activity. So we got to take back our streets at the end of the day, people. We got to go out there, we got to engage with our youth, and we got to push them and let them know there's programs out there that can help them succeed in life. And if they're not, then we got to create them.
Time. Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Besides creating more spaces and funding more programs, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of these community centers can no longer stay open till 10 o'clock is because the liability insurance has gone through the roof. So we need to change that, and that we need state help for that. So we need the state to step in and lower that. And until that happens, we need to help provide funding in order to cover that liability insurance so that places can stay open later. Right now, one lawsuit can put a nonprofit out of business. Their insurance is way too high, and it's something that has been a product of, unfortunately, unscrupulous lawsuits that have been filed across the state that have driven the cost of insurance up. It's happening all over the place, and it's something that a lot of nonprofits right now are struggling with, is figuring out how to pay off the liability.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes.
Can you say the question one more time?
Say it again.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Public housing is often the background for gun and gang violence. The trend can only be reversed through youth investment. Currently, NYCHA community centers in our district serve children up to about age 11, and none stay open till 10 p.m. If you are elected, what changes would you implement to better serve teenagers?
So I think about my childhood growing up in East Harlem, and I was a product of the boys club, baseball, football, all of that. So as I look back and I look at what's going on now, there's not a lot of that. So a lot of violence stems from, in my opinion, in my expert opinion, I say is lack of opportunity to do things that are meaningful. We need better, robust programming for our teens so they could feel more included in the neighborhood. I'll give you an example of my life. So playing baseball in my neighborhood allowed me to meet people from other places that are not necessarily right next to me. So one day I was walking through the neighborhood as a young kid, and I was almost assaulted, right? Because I was in the wrong neighborhood, right? So, well, considered that's what they said. But then one of the people, his name was, he was a catcher, and he actually saved my life. I don't know if I would have died that day, but I'm just saying, like, that's the type of community we need to foster. Well, I know that kid over there, and we need to be around each other. I feel like with the advent of social media, it pushes away from each other, and we need to come back. And there's a political fix, but there's also a cultural fix that we need to, explore, so our kids could feel better, comfortable in their neighborhoods. Teenagers got to stop picking up guns, because what else is there for them to do, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that that's what they're doing, but we need to give them more options and better options, not just, oh, there's a nonprofit that's doing something over there. We have to make sure that nonprofit is being accountable for the programming they're doing, and it's actually meaningful for the community. And that's what I feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I definitely agree about the amount of programming that needs to take place. Whichever one of us becomes the next council member, there will be cutting a ribbon for new community centers, because those have already been funded. And so what we're waiting is for them to be built, right? And so I do agree with making sure that the programming is up to par. And one of the ways to do that is to include youth voice. Ask them what they need. I've said this at the last debate. We have to have youth lead that conversation and tell us what it is that they need in those centers to make them come, right? We cannot keep assuming that we are doing good programming for them. In addition, we really have to make sure that when we're funding these things, that we're thinking about economic development for our young people. We're thinking about ways to get them jobs, right? We want to make sure that we are lifting them up, giving them the resources, whatever it is, actual skills. And I will work with the labor unions that have endorsed me to make sure that that happens through apprenticeship programs programs and to make sure that they are holding space for people specifically from our community and specifically from NYCHA to make sure that they have the skills needed so when jobs do become available, they are ready to take those and make a living.
Thank you very much. We will move to our next question, and Mr. Santana, you'll get the first crack at it. This is from South Bronx Unite. How will you address the environmental crisis in the South Bronx, where 1 in 5 children has asthma and diesel-intensive industries are concentrated?
I know for me, I did a toy drive in the district, PS7, and we gave away some toys to the children for Christmas. And it was in an auditorium space just like this. And so we came in and children gave us a nice presentation, but they started to complain about asthma. They started to complain about the ventilation systems and how they're not working. And so for me, that became an indicator. That was part of why I started to focus on that. As we spoke on earlier, it's about putting more greenery in our communities. But specifically when it came to our children, it was about looking at ventilation systems in those schools and fixing them so that they can have better quality of air and they can breathe better, and that we can put them in a better environment overall, because this is the investment of our children, right? And so this is a reality. This is something that we really have to look at.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lopez.
I talked about the expanding the tree canopy. That's obviously one big thing. This is something that's it's impacted my family recently. I have an 18-month-old son that is starting to develop asthma-related breathing problems. That's why he's not here today. One of the things that I'm looking into is how can we provide every resident that lives in a hotspot with air filtration systems until we can figure out how to mitigate the rest of the air pollution problems. These are in-home units that you can plug in that can improve your air quality by upwards to 70% just by running them. They're low cost and low energy usage. But the biggest thing we need to do is we really need to put a concerted effort in investing in ways to mitigate and improve the air quality. And the only way we've been able to do that effectively and efficiently is by increasing the tree canopy, specifically with evergreen trees.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes?
Yeah, I spoke on this earlier. So there's a lot of ways we could address, the disparities, the environmental disparities in our neighborhood. It makes me sad to hear about the numbers that, the air quality in our neighborhood, because I'm a person that lives here my whole life. So God knows what's gonna, what kind of health implications that's gonna be for me and for all of you. So what I mean by that is, again, we was talking about trucking through our neighborhoods. We need to reduce that. That's obvious. You know what I'm saying? So the particulate matters in our lungs is, decreased. Once we do that, I believe that our air will significantly get better. Now, when we was talking about the tree canopy, that's cool. We definitely need to protect green spaces and to create green spaces because they create clean air. So if you live next to Central Park, you probably got cleaner air than somebody, you know what I mean? So we need to create more spaces in our district where there's just trees and green spaces and not development. But for some reason, we are so pro-development in this neighborhood that we don't care about our green spaces. We have to make sure that we're protecting the spaces that create clean air for us. So I said, there's a blue highway law that they're trying, that's passed. There's no numbers on it yet. I believe that that's a good option to cleaning our air and making it more equitable, the air more equitable for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Encarnacion.
Yeah, there's a lot that can be done on this front. We have trucks coming into the area. We need to decrease those trucks coming into the area by making sure that our warehouses, our transfer stations are decreasing the amount of trucks that are coming into the area. We have to make sure also that we have to know that buildings emote a lot of the pollution that is in the South Bronx. And one way that has already been addressed is by local law 97. But I don't I'm not certain that owners are not going to take the fine rather than do the necessary repairs that need to be done in order to address this issue. And so we have to look at innovative ways to meet our goals and make sure that we support those owners so that we can really start making some change there. And I want to understand that the tree canopy thing, yes, we have to continue to do that. The community gardens, yes, we have to continue to do that. But we have to think big, and we have to really address these things at its roots and make sure that we are not letting this in our school buses. They need to be electrified. There was a promise of that, and we only got 43 school buses so far. We have to push to make sure that all of our school buses are electrified, because that's something that we actually have authority over. And so we have to make sure that when we have authority, we're pushing to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for this district.
Thank you very much. Ms. Elowato, you have the final word on this question.
Yes. So I've touched a little bit on this prior, but I do want to say, in addition to the high rates of asthma, our community here in the Bronx is known to be the unhealthiest county in all of New York State. So not only do we have the highest rates of asthma, we have the highest rates of chronic diseases. We have the highest rate. You know, there was a study that went out on Alzheimer's disease that said there are three cities with the largest rate of Alzheimer's disease, and it was Miami, another city in California, and the Bronx. The fact that the Bronx was identified to be one of the largest cities is telling. You know, the other thing that we're dealing with is the high rate of colon cancer that is taking over in our communities that has a lot to do with the environmental impact. And so early onset colon cancer is another issue that is taking over in Black and Latinx communities. So we have to look at not just asthma, but what are all the factors that are really impacting our environment in East Harlem and in the South Bronx. And so I'm committed to doing that. I have been doing that since 2016. I've been on a mission to make sure that we change the health disparity here in the Bronx and in East Harlem, and I will continue to do that. And so, I'm a champion. This is one of the issues that is very important and dear to my heart, and I think it's something that we can solve together if we have the right people and we unify around it.
Thank you very much. Candidates, I just give you a moment to take a deep breath. We've done real well. We want to shorten the answers now to 60 seconds to make sure we get everything in, but we appreciate your diligence and your thoughtfulness on all of the questions we've asked. So from now on, it'll be 60 seconds. Kevin, you got it? Okay. This question comes from a community member. It's about education. Charter schools and public schools differ in governance, funding, and operational structure. The Bronx has the highest concentration of charter schools in the city, and District DS7 ranks lowest for educational outcomes in the city. How do you plan to address the issue, and how will you encourage more families to join public schools or traditional public schools?
Okay, so that's a good question. So what I would do is, right now there's a historic low of attendance right now in public schools in general. Kids are not going to school. They're not, after the pandemic, there's been a significant drop, and it's unfortunate because, school is very important in life. If I didn't go to school, I would not be sitting here today, obviously, right? So we need to do, in order to address the situation, is to incentivize parents to bring their kids to school. Make sure if your kid makes it to a certain amount of attendance in school, there could probably potentially be some type of financial gain, because again, living in our incentives to incentivize the school. And I don't know for how long, right? But until we get right back into the groove of school is important, right? That's just the message that we have to instill in the kids. So I would like to explore that and to bring back the kids to public school. Now, charter schools, on the other hand, they operate in a different lens, and people are. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you. Again, we have shortened the answers to make sure we get everything done, but we do appreciate you. Ms. Encarnacion, thank you.
Yes, I mean, that when you talked about the number of charter schools being co-located is a real issue for our public schools. It creates overcrowding, it creates underfunding, and it creates an illusion that these are better options than our public school, and that is not true. Our public schools need to be invested in, and we have been doing that, not only capital-wise, but I mean, right now we could have been benefiting from some investment into this school by having air conditioner in this building so that we can properly think and talk, right? Like, we have to continue to do that so that that parents understand that there is a better option, and that is public schools. Stop squeezing our schools, right? And then, and unfortunately, the City Council does not cite that, but the Panel for Education Policy does, and we have to make sure that we have qualified people that really care about our kids sitting on the PEP in order to make sure that that happens.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ms. Aliato.
So as someone who has worked in public charter schools and also someone who attended public schools, I am a person who supports school choice. I encourage, we have a district where our families, some of our kids are in charters, some of our kids are in parochial, some of our kids are in private, some of our kids are in public schools. But what I do see a gap in all of them. And the gap that I see the most and the gap that I hear about the most in our communities is the lack of services that these schools provide for students with disabilities, for students on the autism spectrum. And that is something that I am committed to as someone here in the district who wants to strengthen our schools, all schools, because these are all our kids. So we can't take from one to put into the other. We have to strengthen all the schools that our families have decided to put their kids in. We have to make sure that they provide the services, because our families are jumping hurdles because they have children with disabilities who aren't getting served.
That's 100% correct. We got to look at our schools. Here it is that, charter schools, at the end of the day, the problem in our community is the public schools, right? We have to invest more money into our public schools. We have to give them more programs. Again, everybody touches on these topics up here, and they're all 100% correct, because it's the truth. Our children are suffering in our communities. And we got to take some accountability on that also. We have to take some accountability because we also have to be transparent with our children. And we have to let them know the awareness of what's going on outside in our communities, right? Again, it's about building. It's about establishing those bridges to let them know that these hurdles do exist. But we got to be the examples. And it starts with education.
Thank you very much.
100%.
Mr. Lopez, go ahead.
So I'm going to address the last part of this, which is how do we encourage more parents and more families to choose public school? And the best model that I've been able to see is the community school model. We need to make sure that we have more schools that have not only good education, but also provide all the wraparound services that the whole family needs. That includes laundry access. That includes showers for kids that are typically living sometimes in shelter. That is food access, not just for students, but also for the family. So making sure that our communities are more focused on servicing the entire family will encourage more families to choose public schools.
Thank you very much. Here, I lost my place. Who gets the first? I guess Mr. Santana, she had this one first, right? You had it first, so then Mr. Lopez gets it first. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Lopez, same subject, education. This is from a community member. What's your position on mayoral control of New York City schools? That the old system of the Board of Education was taken down, and now we've had mayoral control.
Yeah, I think mayoral control really depends on who the mayor is. And so far, we've had some really crappy mayors that haven't really done much to help our schools. So you know what? Put the power back in the school boards. Let's bring them back. Let's make them elected, and let's go back to the days where parents were actually making the choices for public schools.
Thank you.
I've always been against mayoral control because I believe that I feel like parents and boards are are best to make the decision for their kids. So I'm against mayoral control, I always have been. And I guess what he said is true about just like whoever the mayor is, especially with this mayor right now. So definitely give the power back to the school boards, and that's what I'm supporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of the reasons why the mayoral control exists is because it creates a consistency around our schools, right? And making sure that our education, and there's an agenda there. But you're right, when we have a bad mayor, then we have bad consequences. And so for me, it's looking at ways to protect our communities, to inject community voice, and to make sure that we outweigh the power of the mayor in certain situations where we really feel strongly about that, right? And so there are so many ways to do that without taking away a streamlined system where our students are getting the education that they need. And the thing about just saying no or yes is that those things are very complex, and we got to make sure that we are doing the best that we can for all of our kids without breaking a system or reverting back to a system that really made no sense and actually led to a lot of corruption.
Thank you.
I support mayoral control with stronger accountability. I think because the mayor is the mayor, that doesn't mean that the mayor shouldn't be held accountable. And I think the city council and the speaker, working with the city council and the speaker, we should hold the mayor accountable, but also with stronger community engagement as well. So I do support mayoral control, and it's about clear leadership, checks and balances.
Thank you.
I also believe it's about who the mayor is at the time. I also believe that he shouldn't have 100% power. That community board should have some access in there, some type of leeway, so that at the end of the day, if we wind up having to get the wrong mayor, then he can be held accountable.
Thank you. Okay, these next questions are community voices, which I'm sure everybody here supports. So I guess we're up to Mr. Reyes, right? Okay. This is from a community member. What is your vision for addressing the homelessness and opioid crises that have resulted in quality of life concerns, as seen with the needles and other forms of trash throughout the area, in ways that don't dehumanize but create community-based solutions?
So the good one. So the goal should always be, so addiction is basically like, it's mental health. I would consider that, people who are addicted to drugs is basically mental health, a mental health situation. And what so when you have addiction operating so heavy, we have to be able to first put people who are addicted on paths to recovery. So, and not in a way that we have our police parsing that out. We need to figure out, like there's a mechanism operating that show that when people are in trouble, when people get in trouble all right, I'm having a hard time here. So when people have an issue and they get caught with paraphernalia, they are taken in and they're released. What should happen is basically they should get referred to help. What I mean by that, they come in front of a board and they be like, listen, you're not gonna go to jail, anything of that nature, but you need to go to a space to get better. And that's basically it. That's it.
Time, thank you.
Yes. Yes, you can get them jobs. We need to get them housing. We need to get them help. We need to get them wraparound services. And we need to make sure that when we're creating policies, that we're not also creating unintended consequences. There was a push to give out clean needles so that we wouldn't have people, suffering, right? And then what we did was we didn't incorporate a cleanup for those needles, right? And so then the community suffered for that. So we have to make policy, and that is proof that we have to make policy that encompasses all unintended consequences, but we have to start by understanding that these issues are a health issue, not a criminalized issue. We have to care about our neighbors and our people and stop demonizing them and give them the real opportunities and increase services to do street outreach directly to those folks so that we are not tripping over them as we're going over the street. It is unfair and unsafe for us and our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's Retro? Go ahead.
So my vision is focused on compassion and community-based led solutions, like always, that preserve dignity. My family, I have very personal ties to addiction in my family, and it is a conversation that I'm constantly talking to family members. And one of the things that I support, I believe in mandatory treatment, paired with robust supportive systems, mental health, supportive housing. A lot of the times, we are dehumanizing the people who are struggling when we talk about the hub, when we talk about 125th Street. We really, these are human beings. They're relatives, fathers and mothers and aunts, uncles, sisters, brothers. And so we really need to find a solution, a compassionate solution. But if we care about them, we will get them treatment. And it needs to be mandated. It just can't be an optional thing anymore. That's not working in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Santana.
That's right, 100%. We have to take accountability for our people because they still part of our community. They still part of our neighborhood. and we have to take that investment into them, and we got to make sure that they get the resources. At this time, it's 3:30. I'm sorry, I have to go. Today is, my daughter's birthday, and so
happy birthday.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to make it to the forum, but she told me, she said, go ahead, just make sure you're here on time. So I just want to say, the Bronx, this is your moment to hold us accountable. This is your moment to be heard, your concerns. Let us know what they are, because at the end of the day, we're here to unite your voice. And I'm here to make sure that you are heard, and you are heard loud, because the Bronx has something to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
In order to address the homelessness issue, we need to focus on housing first solutions. We have roughly between 5,000 and 10,000 chronically street homeless people. We have supportive housing available for these folks. It's just there's a lot of red tape for them to get into it. So we need to eliminate those barriers to entry. In terms of the opioid crisis, we need to make sure that people are getting treatment closer to where they live. The average New Yorker receiving opioid treatment in New York City has to travel more than a mile. And studies show for every mile you have to go to get treatment, there's an 80% chance that you're gonna fall into a relapse. Making the treatment closer to home will help solve a lot of the issues that people are having in terms of being compliant and sticking to their regimens.
Thank you. So the next question for Ms. Encarnacion. This also comes from a community member. How will you hold bad landlords accountable for heating issues, poor maintenance, and lack of repairs?
That's what they should
we
do.
know a lot of people can relate to that.
That is exactly right. Those are the criminals. Those are the people that we criminalize, are the bad landlords that are continuing to operate, making sure that our communities have mold, have deteriorating bathrooms. Raymond alluded to it earlier when we were petitioning. Many of us saw that the conditions that people are forced to live in, and landlords continuing to operate as landlords we really have to start removing the opportunities for them to be able to run these buildings. That is it. Take these buildings away from them and make sure that they never run them again. This is a health crisis, and in many cases, we have to make sure that that happens, and that's going to be a legislative action. Yeah, that's right. The CLT program is absolutely right, and making sure that we have home ownership opportunities that comes from communities. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Zaliati.
Banana Kelly. Number 10.
Can you repeat that question?
Sure, they want the question again. I just put it down.
What?
Hold on 1 second. Sorry.
Landlords, right? I heard
That's
it.
right. Here
we go.
How will you hold bad? I got 40 questions.
There we go. I got it.
How will you hold bad landlords accountable for heating issues, poor maintenance, and lack of repairs?
Listen, the biggest landlord here in our district that's terrible is NYCHA, and we got to get to them. We really have to get to NYCHA and fix the issue. We can no longer allow this to continue in our communities. People are living in deplorable conditions, and it's not fair. You have seniors, you have children, and we have to end that. So the biggest landlord here who's unfair is NYCHA, and we have to figure out how to end this now and forever. In terms of other landlords, we've got to increase fines, but we've also got to create legislation that says, after 3 strikes, that's it. We can revoke your license as a landlord. We got to be hard on these landlords because it's just not fair that they get to do whatever they want in our communities.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lopez.
So having taken on one of the worst landlords in Emerald Equities, we had to basically organize. So one of the biggest things that we can do in order to encourage that is use our power of discretionary funding to create more tenant associations and give them the money and empower them to be able to do the work they need to do. That includes guaranteeing that everyone that goes to housing court has representation. And we can do that by leveraging not only student attorneys, pro bono attorneys, folks that are looking, right now, there are a lot of attorneys who want to change careers and want to get into a different type of law. Guess what? Great opportunities for you to learn housing law. come and volunteer your time and represent people that need it the most.
Thank you.
So when it comes to landlords holding them accountable, I don't listen. For some reason, the state and the city always give power to the landlord. I don't feel bad for them. If your building looks disgusting, you deserve to get it taken away. Now, as somebody that used to work for the public advocate, we used to put out a list every year. Well, they still put out a list. I don't work there anymore, but the list of the worst landlords, and we take the fight to them. I've been to many, many different landlords throughout the city, and we rallied them and we tell them that that's not okay. So at the end of the day, when it comes to landlords, I do not respect a landlord that can't keep their apartment up to par because they expect the rent, right? So if you expect the rent, I expect my apartment to look, top notch, spick and span. That's just what it is. So when we talk about landlords, we got to stop defending them, because after the pandemic, there was an increase of defense for landlords because of the moratorium, because they said that, oh, we weren't getting rent. I can't feel remorse for that, because if your building looks disgusting, we're not going to pay the rent, and then we got to go to court just like that, right? So that's what I feel about, and that's landlords should go to jail if they're not keeping their apartments up to par. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 questions left. We'll start here with Ms. Alieto. This is from Bronx Hype. Residents of Mott Haven have consistently expressed concerns that district office hours, community events, and resource distribution has been more limited in the South Bronx compared to East Harlem. As a council member, how will you ensure that resources, services, and city funding are equitably distributed across all neighborhoods within District 8?
As someone who lives on the Bronx side of this district, I relate to the disparity. And I will say the one thing that I think about is to move the office from where it is now to a more central place in Mott Haven here in the Bronx. When you talk to a lot of community members and you say, do you know where the council member's office is? A lot don't know where the council member's office is, and it's kind of in the cut. So we have to push it in a more centralized place. The other thing is that we need to expand services in the district. If we're a shared district, then we should be able to share services. Then organizations on one side should be able to provide services to the residents on this side, and vice versa. So we really have to look at the public money, where we got to take a deep dive to say, where is the public money going? Which organizations are getting what? Because we know that we've seen the disparity where the Bronx doesn't get their fair share. And so as the only Bronx candidate who is from the Bronx and has a different loyalty to the Bronx, I will ensure that the Bronx has their equitable share of the district funding.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
So 51% of the district is in the Bronx. The council members should be 51% of their time here. One of the things I've committed to is making sure that my public schedule is available online, so you know where I am at all times. I also plan on moving the primary district office to the Bronx as well, to make sure that we are able to access and have the ability to deliver constituent services in a more consistent manner. That doesn't mean that we forget about East Harlem. That just means that we're sharing the resources. I strictly believe that we are one community that is separated by 3 bridges, and we should be able to share our resources across and not have it be a Bronx thing or an East Harlem thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to the district office, I have nothing to do with that at this time. That in the way the culture has been set up, I can definitely see. I going to different meetings in East Harlem as compared to South Bronx. There is an absence of our of our elected official. Unfortunately, that's what has been said. So now, what I mean by that is this: if I'm your elected official, I would do it. I would change it. So basically, 3 days in East Harlem, 4 days over here, and now then we will switch it back up. That's how I want to do it, because I want you to see me. You're gonna see me. I'm gonna let you know. You're gonna see me. I'm gonna be outside for you guys, and that's a fact. And I'm sorry to sometimes you try to speak in a certain way, but I'm just gonna speak how I want to speak. So when it comes to this, I would like to let you know that if elected, I would never neglect y'all. I went to high school in the South Bronx. I'm not afraid to be in the Bronx. I don't know about the rest, but I'm not afraid to be here. You know what I'm saying? I'm always here. You know what I'm saying? I'm always here. So my best friends live here. I'm always here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Ms. Encarnacion.
Thank you. So I just want to point out, obviously, and most of you know that I currently work for the local elected official, and as we span two boroughs, we're one of the only districts that span two boroughs that has a permanent office in the other part of our district. That was a fight that was had to make sure that we have representation here. I do agree with moving into a situation, to a different location. Me and Diana fight about that all the time, but I do agree that it needs to be in a closer situation, in a closer area, and it has to be bigger so that more people can be there. But without that advocacy, we would not even have that. A lot of people have mobile services and mobile clinic times and areas. We have a physical office operating out of this. And you don't have to search for the money, Clarissa. It's public information. You can see exactly how that money is split in between the districts, and you will see very clearly that it is equally distributed. I think what we need is not equal, but equitable. And if you and the Bronx part of the district needs more funding than the East Harlem part of the district for certain things, then yes, you should have more in that case.
Thank you. Candidates, we have come to the final question. Before we ask it, how about a nice round of applause for Clarissa Alieto, Raymond Santana, who's not here at the moment, Will Lopez, Nicholas Reyes, and Elsie Encarnacion. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your commitment to our communities, and good luck the rest of the campaign. Final question. What specific steps will you take to increase community involvement in decision-making, especially among residents who feel and have felt ignored by city government? Mr. Lopez, you're first.
You got to go to where the people are. Way too often, whenever we try to make community-based decisions, we get everyone into a big auditorium and we have discussions there. That's one way of doing it. We need to start making it even more micro and going to where the people are, literally going into the buildings and having smaller conversations with people. Because look, a lot of times there are people that have mobility issues that can't make it here. There are people that work that can't make it to a 6 o'clock meeting because they work the night shift. So we need to make sure that we're not only going into the buildings, but we're also changing the times that we're having these meetings so we can engage more of the public.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so the way I always thought that we should make it more fun, right? Make it more make these meetings that we come to a little bit more like I want to be there. It's a more attention to be gained. So I would like to do quarterly meetings, but that go between both South Bronx and East Harlem, providing transportation from between both boroughs. And what that does is that increases potential for coalition building between East Harlem and the South Bronx, which would be phenomenal, because I'm trying to really be, big on unity. And the second thing I would like to say, one more time. Sorry. So, what was it? One more time. I lost my train of thought. What was the question again, brother?
Question was
engaging,
about,
yeah. So engaging people.
engagement.
I would like people so what I do right now. I also do something called New York Touch, where I've been doing that work, where I bring people, a younger generation, into politics to let them know how important these spaces are. And we've been doing a good job with just spreading the word about why this is important to you. Because one thing it is very important for us to be engaged with each other. And also I want to show you my plans every 3 months at these meetings. I will show you what I've been doing and what I haven't been doing, and you hold me accountable, and you also have your input on public policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Encarnacion.
Thank you. I have actually a lot of experience in engagement. I spent 10 years as an engagement specialist at a local high school, engaging families, engaging students in those processes. I've also been a big proponent of participatory budgeting, where you all get to decide how the money that it's your taxpayer dollars are spent, and so increasing those opportunities. I have a vision of making sure that we do that participatory style for our legislative process as well. You all should be a part of how you govern yourself, right? You all should have a voice at that table. I have a lot of experience in that and making sure that our young people are part of that conversation. I have led many task force. We also ran the first youth council out of any district office almost 20 years ago, making sure that we were the ones who put the first youngest council member in the district on a community board at the age of 18. And that was over 15 years ago that we did this work. And so that is something that I'm very passionate about, is engagement, and I look forward to making sure that my run in city council includes that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Ms. Alieto, you get the final word here.
So before we can do any of the engagement, I think people need to feel like they trust their leaders. And that is something that in our communities we have felt hasn't been the case. We know that we have the lowest voter turnout. We know that the people who are impacted the most aren't in this room, and those are the ones that we really have to work on. You know, people who are active and engaged, right, are very few in our communities, and I feel that we have, as leaders, we have to be intentional. We have to do more and pour in more resources to engage our communities. I've done it on the community board. It's why I ran for chair. After sitting on the community board for 9 years, I felt that I couldn't get anything done as a young person from this community. So I ran for chair and I won that seat because I needed to make sure that the community board was accessible, that we were transparent, and that people knew how to be part of the decision making in their community. And that's the type of leadership I look to take to the council.
Thank you very much. Candidates, thank you very much. We want to thank Felix and Maria for giving us the opportunity to be bilingual in English and Spanish. Folks, this is important. If you have a question that was not asked today, and I know there are a lot of, this is the Bronx, everybody has something to say, please add, you know, I'm born and raised here. You think I don't know? Please add your question to a sticky note on the posters on the wall of the auditorium near the entrance. It's right back there, and they'll ask the candidates to provide responses within the next week. Those responses will then be mailed to all RSVPs, so put your email, et cetera, et cetera. I will also remind you, please go to BronxNet.org/community action. We need to save the opportunity to put events like this on TV. Otherwise, without BronxNet, you'd be talking to the walls, you know? And of course, the most important is your vote matters. Take what you learned about these candidates, make your voice heard on the upcoming primary election day, which is Tuesday, June 24th. Early voting is from June 14th to June 22nd. And again, we are thrilled to have recorded this event for BronxNet. Be on the lookout in the coming days for the YouTube video of it. It'll also be on television on BronxNet TV. I'm Gary Axelbank. It is a pleasure to be with my friends and neighbors in the Bronx. Together we do it, right?
Thank you,
Okay.
Gary.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you on TV.